Hello, welcome to Legal Action. My name is David Siegel. Today we're going to be talking about traffic, and joining me once again is my co-host Jesse Barrientos. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dave.
How you doing today, Jesse?
Very good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Now listen, Jesse, you're driving down the road,
Right.
minding your own business. You got the radio on. You're really not paying attention. You're probably going a little bit too fast.
Maybe.
And then out of nowhere in the back, your rearview mirror,
What do you see?
you've got the lights going off.
Right.
You start hearing a sound. All of a sudden, your heart starts beating about 100 beats per minute. You're looking for a place to pull over. What is the first thing that goes
what
through
happens?
your mind?
Well,
and what's happening, actually?
I'll tell you, actually, but before we get to that, I'd like to share something with you because, you know, a lot of times we do shows on bankruptcy and we do shows on domestic relation and divorce and everything else, so this might be appropriate, you know. Here's a guy who is in that very same situation. He's had a horrible day at work and he's driving and he's speeding, he's going a little bit too fast, and before long, he sees the cherries in his rearview mirror. And he sees that, and then he loses it completely and utterly. And he steps on the accelerator, and he starts weaving it out and starts to try to outrun this police officer. And all of a sudden, reality sets in upon him. And he thinks, oh no, I made a mistake. So he pulls over, and then out of the police car comes this trooper, kind of goes on up to the driver's side window, and tells the driver, he says, you know, I've had a long day, I pulled a double shift, I'm hungry, got a bunch of reports to write. If you can give me an excuse I've never heard before, I'll let you go. And the motorist is just, you know, this is an opportunity. And he scratches his head and he tells the trooper, he says, you know, I know that you're not going to believe this, but 2 weeks ago, my wife ran away with a cop, and I thought you were trying to bring her back. Anyway, I thought that was just kind of odd.
That is fitting.
Because we do a little domestic relations.
And he let him go after that.
And of course.
But in reality, we've got an officer here who's not letting this guy
That's
go.
right. So
he's got him pulled over. You're going about 20 to 25 over, so you're in that 15 to 30 over range.
Right.
Which is the higher level. Not to the point where you're going to be arrested and thrown in the back of the car. But
hopefully not.
You're going to get a pretty good ticket for this.
Well, you know, the thing to remember is to make sure that you have your information kind of handy, which is going to be obviously your driver's license and your proof of insurance. And sometimes for me, it's a couple other cards, my bar card and everything else. But you know, you're going to want to have those things handy. It's an issue sometimes for people, and you can get a ticket. A lot of people do, and they have to end up. You know, if the officer is going to give you a break, everything's got to be clear. In other words, you're going to have your proof of insurance, your driver's license, all your tags are going to have to be correct if he isn't going to give you a pass on it or a warning.
Sure.
And so a lot of times people don't have their insurance card, or because they're excited and they're just, you know, a little bit frazzled, they can't find it. And as a result, they end up getting the ticket and, you know, they have to go through that situation. So before we even get to this point, let's talk about a little preventative action that you can take. Obviously, I think the most obvious is what? Don't speed, right? I mean, that's
right. Well, have a driver's license.
Well, have a driver's license. I mean, that's important. You'd be surprised the number of people that don't. It's important too, you know, you're in the left lane. Hey, you know, that's the lane that most police officers look at. And, you know, there's been studies and they'll tell you, hey, listen, if it's a red car or a black car, your chances of getting stopped are better than some of these other cars. If it's a sports car, you know, your chances are better with respect to that. You know, we look for the gazelle, which is the other person that's zooming, and then we follow a little bit closely, not too closely, but behind that person because we know which one's going to get nabbed. But you know, truth be told, you really shouldn't be speeding, especially if it's in a construction zone or
which is everywhere around here.
Which is everywhere.
Today.
I know there's no. I don't think there's any place you can go that there's not a construction zone these days, or you know, a school zone or anything like that. But you know, it's important to have your information available and accessible because you know you might get a pass. And so you get pulled over, and hey, it's your heart does start to beat. That's
sure.
absolutely true.
Sure.
I remember one time, Dave, we
Adrenaline kicks in.
Well, we did. Your adrenaline kicks in. I was actually it was the maiden voyage of your the radio show that you have there.
Debt Relief Radio.
Debt Relief Radio, and I believe it was on a Sunday because it couldn't be any other time. Thank you, Dave.
That's right.
Sunday, 11 o'clock.
It might have been 11 o'clock
I think
at
that's
night.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, 11 o'clock, and I'm coming back, and
It's on 560 WIND.
right, I'm talking, and apparently the officer made a mistake and pulled me over, but we were able to work it out, and I did get a pass, So, but again, the point is, hey, I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing for the adrenaline does kick in, and so you want to be very respectful and very polite. It doesn't matter how the officer or the trooper treats you. There are a lot of people who get upset. Well, what did you stop me for? What do you think you're doing? And not a good idea.
Yeah. Did the officer ask you to step out of the vehicle, or did he want to search your vehicle?
No, I gave him your name, and everything was okay. I was going to give him another friend's name. It was, I'll just say the first name. It was Mark, but I figured that he would do a Rodney King on me. But hey, what can you do, right?
Yeah.
It's important, I think, these days too. I always used to get out of the car. I always used to, get out and, but
it's a mistake.
It's important. It's a mistake. Stay in
Big
there.
mistake.
Stay in there. Keep your hands. Well, if you can get your stuff ready so that when he approaches, you've got it right here. That's probably the best thing that you can do. Keep your hands visible, because they're going to be looking for things, especially depending upon the time. I think I want to say it's in Kane County, a place called Sleepy Hollow, and I'll say that on tape
Yes, it
too.
is.
Anything out of Sleepy Hollow after 10:30 has got to be a DUI, and I say that because that's how they treat it. At least that's how they used to do it several years ago. So, it depends upon the time too, that you get out. So you want to be respectful, you want to be polite, you want to have everything in order. I don't think it's inappropriate for you to ask for a break and to ask officer, what did I do? But in a respectful way. Hey, if you can see your way to to give me a warning or.
When did you get your first ticket? When did you get your first citation? How old were you?
Dave, I don't recall that I've ever received a citation.
Really?
I may have. It would be.
You never had a speeding citation in your life?
It would be years ago.
I find this hard to believe.
I may have had one. I do recall one when I was in Melrose Park, and the funny thing about that is Maywood is where the courthouse is and where the state police are too. And I think I was on my way to a wedding or something that day, and I needed my license and everything, and so I didn't want to give up my license. I wanted to pay, and so I had to go with them. And I went over there, and they processed me, and they took the money, and the officer, it was a county deputy sheriff, and he found out I was an attorney. He said, if I knew you were an attorney, he said, I would have given you more tickets. I don't know if he was kidding or not, but hey.
I don't think he was kidding.
I don't think he was either. But that was, I can't tell you how many years ago.
All right, well, let's say you can't talk your way out of it, or you can't get a break. In this situation that I'm talking about, where you're going in between 15 and 30 over speeding, you're going to get a citation.
Right.
What's going to happen next?
Well, you're going to get your ticket, and sometimes they might ask you to sign for a receipt for it. Now it depends. There may be a must appear where, and it just depends on how that goes, where you have to appear at a specific date, a specific time, in a specific courtroom, depending upon which county where you're at, or they will send it in. You have an option, if it's that kind of a ticket, to be able to send it in to pay the money, and if you're eligible, you'll get supervision, and we'll explain what that kind of a sentence is. Not yet. We'll talk about a little bit further on the process here. And so if you do not send it in within a certain amount of time, you'll get a postcard that will tell you when your court date is going to be, and then you'll have to appear.
Do you need a lawyer on that court date, or can you handle this pro se?
I think that's something that you could. Well, it depends on your driving record, that you could probably handle pro se. But I got to tell you though, I'm a lawyer, and I'm a very fond believer in, hey, listen, a lawyer knows what he's doing. He knows what the rules are. He knows, what the sentences are, what the fines are, and everything else. And you don't, because you're not trained. It would sort of be like if there's any musicians out there that play, let's say, the piano or the guitar. It'd be like me trying to play the piano or the guitar. And just so that we're clear, at least at this point today, as we sit here, I can't play either. So you can imagine the mess that's going to be, right?
Sure.
It's important for you to have, the proper counsel that you need. So, but I mean, I still think that if your record's good and everything else, you might be able to go in. But if you do have a lawyer, probably what's going to happen is you're probably not going to have to go to traffic school. Now, it might be that traffic school is going to be good for you.
School?
Oh, yes.
You have to go to school?
Oh, and you have to pay for it.
Really?
Yes. A lot of times what will happen is, depending upon, what the violation is, and depending upon, where you're at, you'll have to do traffic school.
Well, let me get this straight.
You have to pay for it.
In a divorce
That's part
case
of your
with,
sentence.
In a divorce case with minor children, you're going to parenting class.
Yes, you are.
If you want to file a bankruptcy, you're going to an educational
Yes, you
financial
are.
class. And if you're driving like a fool, you're going to go to driving school. There's also drug
likely.
school, too, for minor drug offenses.
Right.
A lot of schools out there.
A lot of schools. Education, knowledge is power, Dave.
Okay. All right.
And it's what's more powerful is if you listen to what you've heard and what you've learned.
Then why is there so much recidivism?
Well, I don't know. I guess
The school's not working.
Well, people, you could sit in school. My dad used to tell me, hey, you're going to be there anyway. You might as well, get what you can from it, And it's important to, people resent a whole bunch of things, and I can understand that. I mean, hey, I've got things to go. I could be working and making the money that I need to make in order to support my family. But they have those schools at different times where, they're after work, so
Right.
they will fit into your schedule.
One other little side note that I remember, not a school situation,
Sure.
but when I was in traffic court as an attorney, Judge Orbach, who used to sit in Skokie, would come out, and before he started the call, he would make a little speech.
Yes.
And it stays in my mind to this day. He said, "You hurry to get somewhere. For what? You got there early, you got lucky. Many people have died, been crippled, paralyzed, because they just wanted to get somewhere faster." That always stayed in my mind. Most of the accidents are caused by excessive speeding, not paying attention, because they're in a rush, they're running behind, they want to get to where they're going. So that little lesson that he said in the courtroom in front of the whole, all the parties there, which he probably did every call,
Sure.
sinks in, and it makes sense. So it's more important than school if you can just hear a wise person say something to you.
Well, and it is important, for those of you that are out there at home, you know what? When you have a yellow light, it doesn't mean to accelerate, okay?
Right.
It means quite the opposite, all right? And a lot of people do, I want to get there. And you're right. What is, what really is 5 minutes going to make?
Right. We can talk about the red light cameras too, and how
yeah.
those are causing some accidents.
And we're gonna, that's true. We can to hit there, but we're in the situation now. You get you get stopped, and the officer writes you a ticket, and now you have a choice to either send it in, and hopefully, maybe you'll get supervision, maybe you won't. You do not want to get a conviction. Now, let me explain. Supervision is a sentence that the court can impose for most traffic offenses that essentially will not be reported to your insurance company, will not be reported to the Secretary of State as a conviction. And essentially what it means is supervision, as long as you fulfill the terms of your supervision, whether it's a fine, whether it's traffic school, community service, whatever the case may be, and however the term, generally 3 months, maybe 6
Yeah.
months.
60 to 90 days without
Right,
another
exactly.
infraction.
As long as you've done that without another infraction, then basically it's like it didn't happen. Now, is it on your record? It is, because they know how many supervisions you've had, because you're not going to get an unlimited amount of
The
supervisions.
county does, but it doesn't go to your insurance.
Right, exactly. And in fact, some judges have been in trouble, or they've had some exposés about judges, giving supervision. I think that the media and that, the people at large just don't really understand how those kind of things work. But enough kind of really said about that. So, that's supervision. You could get a conviction for for a traffic offense, which is a conviction that will go on your record, will be reported to your insurance company, make your insurance rates go up and everything else. And you are in a better position to get a conviction if your driving record is horrible, if
Yeah.
you've had other similar offenses.
If you're at that conviction stage,
Right.
you probably deserve the conviction.
Sure.
Because, like you said, there's many times where you can go before the court and ask for supervision and get it. Either pay a fine, go to school.
Right.
Sometimes it's 4 hours, 8 hours. But there's going to be a financial toll every time you get a ticket.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you're doing a pro se or whether you're going through an attorney,
Right.
you're going to pay a court fine.
You're going to pay a court fine. And so let's take the position now where, you're going to go in. And again, depends upon the ticket. If it's a speeding ticket, it's a different. If maybe you got into an accident and it's, getting a ticket for following, too close to avoid an accident or failure to reduce speed to reduce an accident, something like that, and you go in, hey, and the other party doesn't show up, probably going to be dismissed. Okay. If it's somebody retired on the other side, they're going to show up. Trust me.
Good segue here. What if the officer doesn't show up? Is that what you're banking on? That the officer won't show up so there won't be any witness?
The officer generally will show up, and generally, unless it's a speeding ticket,
In Cook County, Chicago?
well, it depends. Now, they may show up or they may not. If they do not show up, you have to, and this is where having an attorney will come in handy, because if you show up on your own, they're probably going to grant, it depends on the judge, they're probably going to grant the state a continuance. However, I believe it's Section 505 that says that, the officer's appearance in court for that time, if he's not there on that time and, there's no just reason to continue it, it really should be dismissed. And so, that's why it's important to have an attorney, somebody who knows what the law is and somebody who's going to be able to make that argument to the court.
Yeah, it's often going to depend on the violation too. A minor traffic offense,
Right.
if the officer doesn't show up, they might throw it out. If it's something serious or egregious, they're probably going to try and kick it over to the next star date, which is
Sure.
the next time that officer is due to appear in court.
That's right. Then you're going to lose another day's work, and that's the other thing. And again, it comes into financial feasibility. Now, it's unfortunate, but it's true.
Fines
What-
keep going up.
Well, they do.
Big time.
But what am I going to do? Okay. Am I going to take the time and I'm going to sit there on my own without an attorney, and I'm going to spend 3-4 hours? I'm going to have to probably take at least a half a day off. Depending upon what I work or where I'm at, how much is that going to cost me? And with the possibility that might, I might have to come back again in a situation like that and spend all that time. Is it financially feasible for me to do that? That's something that you have to think about.
Right.
But anyway, so you go to court, and all right, hey, if nobody shows up and it's one of those citations where it's failure to reduce speed to avoid an accident, and they don't show up, okay, great, gets dismissed, fine, you're good, you're done. But if it's a situation where it's a speeding ticket, now again, it also depends upon where you're at, which county, it depends upon the judge. Certain judges have different qualms and different little idiosyncrasies, and so, all right, you get your fine, and if you don't have anything terribly on your record, then you're probably going to get supervision, and you're going to have to pay your fine. You're going to take a hit.
Okay. What if you're one of these guys that just feels, I didn't do it? Let's say it's improper lane usage that the officer pulls you over for, and from there it goes into a more serious offense, let's say a DUI. If you can fight that initial stop, they didn't have probable cause because you didn't commit the improper lane usage,
Right.
you'll obviously beat the case. What do you do in a situation where someone wants to fight it? You can plead it and get them supervision, but they just hard-headed, they want to take it to the judge. Will you actually undergo the trial in this case?
What I'll do is I'll explain it to them, and I'll explain to them, hey, listen, this is your options and this is what's happening. A lot of times I'll even have them sign a statement that indicated that I've advised them and I've recommended that they take this course of action, but they haven't. I mean, the other choice is, again, of course, for me to withdraw because they're not following my advice. It's somebody that's hard-headed and they don't really understand kind of what's going on. And I understand. I had somebody who told me one time they got a ticket, and the officer told them, because the person said, well, I wasn't speeding. And the officer said, well, you know what? I'm sure there were plenty of times when you were speeding and you didn't get a ticket. This just makes up for that. And, they were really devastated and really ticked off by that. But, truth be told, it's the truth.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Anytime you go out there, that applies to everybody. Anytime you go out there, we all commit traffic violations, even if it's going over the white line or I think we always do that. There's, really can't help but doing something like that.
Sure. Talk about some negotiations with the prosecutor. When you've got a case like that, you're going to try and talk to that prosecutor before the call, before the judge comes on the bench.
Right.
What are the things you're saying to him or her, and what is he or she saying to you?
In terms of plea bargaining, first what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to know what my client's record is. I'm going to ask them to get an abstract from the Secretary of State that's going to show what the driving record is.
In this case, it's bad.
Well,
he's had 5 prior pullovers in the last 3 years.
Well, pullovers
No
different.
convictions.
It depends.
No convictions.
Well, if it's supervision, that's one thing. If those things have been dismissed, that's another thing. Now,
Couple supervisions in there.
It depends on where you're at and what judge. Like I said, some judges, hey, they're going to give you maybe 1 or 2 supervisions a year, and that's it. It just depends. So it really depends on the prosecutor too. Basically, the prosecution, is, and again, depending upon the jurisdiction, if they can plea a case, then they're not going to have to worry about having to try it. And it's going to save them some time, and it's going to save them some money. And actually, they're going to be able to do the fine, because generally we'll say, okay, we'll do this. If you dismiss this citation, we'll plea on this one, we'll get supervision, and we'll pay a higher fine.
Okay. I want to talk to you about this interesting concept here, where the prosecutor, after you've talked to them, will then go over to the officer and talk to the officer. What's happening there?
The prosecutor is going to take care of his officers, because those officers are always in there, because that prosecutor is prosecuting for that municipality. And so he wants to make sure he's taking care of them. So remember what I said earlier about being polite and being kind.
I'm glad you're going there, because I didn't know if you know. I'm alluding to the jerk factor.
If you're a jerk, that's exactly what I was going to say. If you were a jerk to the officer is going to tell the state's attorney, hey, he was a real jerk. He came on the, and
give him no quarter.
They're going to be less likely to give you any kind of a break.
Right. Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
How about the judges? What do you think about the traffic judges? Is it a starting point? Is it somewhere where they stay for many years? Where does it fall on the hierarchy of judges?
I think the judges that we have here in DuPage County, Dave, are some of the most magnificent judges. Also,
we're also being seen in Will,
and
Cook.
Kane, and Cook too. But again, and they're just doing their job as they perceive it to be. And you have different decisions based upon the different types of judges. And I kind of imagine myself sometimes. Imagine if you were in the same situation here, in the same thing, time and time and time again, it would get tiring. In fact, I think you might even get a little bit jaded for hearing all that stuff.
And in Cook County, the volume is so high. It's almost like a cattle call every day, to the point where the clerks are sometimes downright rude.
Yeah, I certainly have experienced that as well.
Because they're dealing with people who are not in the court all the time. There are a lot of pro se's, people representing themselves, who have a lot of questions. They don't feel they did it. Some people are nervous. They don't know where to go, where to stand, where to sit.
Right.
You got people on their cell phones, hats turned back. All the things that can go wrong.
Disrespect.
Exactly. All the things that go wrong in a courtroom because they haven't been there before. They're committing those acts. They're chatting. They're doing all kinds. And it's creating a hostile environment in the courtroom, even for the attorneys.
Yeah, that's true enough. I mean, it's really important to give the respect when you go to court. When you go to court, all right, don't wear a tank top and Daisy Duke shorts. All right, I mean, you're in a courthouse. I mean, I can understand, and I've seen people, they're in their work uniform because they've got to go to work, and that's completely understandable. But let's have a little respect for the court system.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where you're at, and if you want. Not that dresses should make that big of a difference, but it does from the perspective that you're not paying the due respect that should be given in that institution,
right.
In that process.
I did a divorce case, and on the final day where you go and prove it up in front of the judge and get it official, my client, unbeknownst to me, came in shorts. We did the case. The judge was very cordial while the woman was up there, but when the woman walked away, the judge chastised me as if I told the client, wear that stuff. I mean, it's just crazy. So, yeah, you want to be respectful to the court. Viewer mail, Jesse. Let's get into viewer mail. You can reach us at questions@legalactiontv.com. We have one, Jesse, that I wanted to bring up to you. Here it is. I'm part of a condominium association. Not a big building, 10 total units. Owners are cooperative, but of course we have one bad seed, an owner who's approximately $4,000 behind in monthly association fees. Everyone else is current. As a result of this one person's actions, we've had to progressively increase the monthly association fees in order to pay for building utilities and maintenance. As an association, we do not have a great deal of time or money to prosecute this fully. Is there anything that you would recommend?
Absolutely. You can do a forcible entry and detainer action, which is an eviction action. Now, you have to understand, it depends upon the bylaws of the condominium association, what it says in terms of those very specific parameters about condo associations and when, or rather the dues and when they're due and what the late charges are and whether or not attorney's fees are acceptable. So that's the document that's going to be controlling, because if they're able to go and hire an attorney, all right, they might be able to recover the charges that is going to take for them to prosecute that forcible entry and detainer. And basically, what they do in a situation like that is do a forcible entry and retainer that's an eviction, get the person out, and rent it until the amount is paid in full.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. I mean,
In this case, you have 2 years where the person didn't make association payments.
it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any reason why this person, that forcible entry, but again, it depends on what's in the rules of the condo association. If they're not drafted artfully, then that might be a problem. It just depends on what's in there. But I mean, that is a way for them to be able to take care of it.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I selected this one, and by the way, you can reach us at questions@legalactiontv.com, questions@legalactiontv.com if you have a legal question. What's interesting here, Jesse, is this person can be evicted from the property that they own.
That's right.
For not making the association. They might be current on the mortgage.
That's right.
But they can still be evicted. Now, it doesn't mean they lose ownership rights to the property, because they still do. They just can't possess it. And you're right, that gives the association the ability to get a renter in there to pay the association fees, or rent that goes towards the association
Till it goes,
fees.
exactly. For that and the late fees and for the attorney's fees and all that other stuff.
Yeah, so we want to welcome your questions on that. But back to traffic, let's just wrap up with that.
Sure.
A little segue here. Let's talk about a situation where it's not just a traffic violation, but it's a possession mixed in there. So there might be some marijuana, there might be some ecstasy pills, there might be cocaine, heroin, crack, all the things you're familiar with seeing in court all the time.
Yeah.
What happens in those cases? We don't just have a simple traffic case anymore, do we?
No, I mean, and very, very often a traffic stop is a prelude to a much bigger indication. And I've got all kinds of feelings on that in terms of individual rights and everything. But very often, hey, somebody didn't put their turn signal on, it was improper lane usage, they got pulled over. And this is what you alluded to earlier about doing a motion petition to suppress, a motion to suppress. Basically saying that, hey, listen, the traffic stop wasn't valid, and because there was no reason for the officer to stop the person, that any evidence that they found as a result of that illegal stop should be the fruit of the poisonous tree, and then therefore not admissible. Again, depends upon where you're at. The best course of action is, and I can tell people out there, obviously, hey, don't speed. I mean, I can't say don't commit a traffic violation. We're all going to do it every time we're out there if it's over the line. But you know what? If you've had something to drink, take a cab, get a hotel room. I guarantee you that $100 cab ride or the $200 hotel stay is going to be cheap compared to the mountain of troubles you're going to have if you get caught up and you get charged with a DUI. Not only that, God forbid you should kill somebody or hurt somebody. God forbid that should happen to yourself too.
Right.
Just use a little common sense out there. Especially now. We talked about all of the construction that's going on. You know what? You see the workers, and I know it's hard for me too. Oh boy, it's hard for me, but I so try. I try. You know what? Slow down. I know it's difficult.
You can't go 45 on a 355.
I know.
You will get run over if you're going 45.
It's difficult to go 45, but that is what the speed limit is. And you don't want to. I mean, hey, these guys are out there. They're in the construction workers are in the street. Again, you want to have a safe environment for them, but also, boy, I tell you, you don't want to have any issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. We've covered traffic today, also with some viewer mail. You've been watching Legal Action. We'll see you next time. Dave Siegel alongside Jesse Barrientos. Take care.